Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to each one of you. I'm delighted to be hosting today's Women's Day special session alongside my co-host Rupa Shri Mohan Dundale. Her core expertise lies in data storytelling and digital analytics. Women's Day is not just a date on the calendar. It's a reminder for all of us to pause, reflect, and ask, was the ceiling ever truly made of glass, or was it only made to appear breakable? And does this metaphor still hold true in today's day and age? So, to help us explore these questions, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for the evening, Abhipsa Naik, who's joining us all the way from Australia. So, Abhipsa, fondly known as IPSA, is the head of technical services at Greenlight Clinical, a Novartis alumna, and an IIM Bangalore graduate. With over 19 years of experience in clinical research and leadership, she has led complex projects, built diverse teams, and navigated both visible and invisible barriers along the way. What truly makes a journey remarkable is not only the professional milestones she has achieved, but the powerful perspective she brings on resilience, self belief, and allyship at work. So, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Abhipsa Naik. So, Ipsa, we are truly honored to have you here with us at Innover Diaspora. With this, Rupashri, over to you and Ipsa to take it forward.
Thank you, Deepu. Thank you for setting the context. Abipsa, we are honored to have you with us today. So let's dive in and over to you.
Thank you so much, Deepu and Rupashri, for the warm welcome and the kind introduction. All right, I will be sharing my screen. And good evening to everybody who is live and watching us today. I'll quickly share my screen. Well, first of all, happy Women's Day to everyone. Whenever we celebrate Women's Day, we often hear powerful stories about resilience, about strength and success, right? And those stories matter a lot. But today, I want to start with something slightly uncomfortable, right? I want to start off today with a lie. Not a malicious lie, not a lie told by a villain twirling her moosh in a dark room somewhere. A lie which is told by well meaning people, repeated so often that it started to sound like truth, believed so widely that it started to shape the world. And you know what the lie is? The lie is if you work hard enough, the barriers will fall. Now, before you think or assume that I would say that hard work doesn't matter at all, I'm definitely not going to say that, right? Hard work definitely matters, effort matters, persistence matters, determination matters. But here is what I have learned. And here is what history has shown us again and again, in country after country, industry after industry, generation after generation. Hard work is necessary, but it was never sufficient. Not for everyone. And it definitely was not equal. Because we have seen, right, so many examples. Some people in this world have been running the race with weights on their ankle. And for decades, the crowd on the sideline, they look at these runners with weights on their ankles and they say, come on, I don't think so. She's trying hard enough. She should put in more effort. So today, we are going to talk about those weights and we are going to name them. We are going to understand them. And then, this is the part that I'm really excited about. We are going to talk about what it actually takes to remove them. Not for one exceptional woman, not for the rare individual who somehow makes it, despite all the challenges, but it is for everyone. All right, what we were told versus what is real. People set the context, right? That we were always told that the ceiling was glass. I want to reframe that and say that this metaphor is not completely true. Ceiling was never glass. It was never meant to be a glass. It was never meant to be broken. Glass is transparent, right? You can see through it to everything that is waiting on the other side. It is fragile. You can push hard enough and it shatters. And it is almost accidental. It doesn't feel like something anyone deliberately puts in there. And that metaphor, shattering the glass ceiling, beautiful as it is, contains a hidden message. If the ceiling is glass, then the only variable is the force of your push, right? So that's when we hear work hard, be bold, be more confident, negotiate better, lean in. And if you still don't break through, well, you clearly didn't push hard enough, right? That is the cruelty behind the metaphor. It takes a structural problem and makes it personal. It takes a system and makes it a self help challenge. It takes a woman who has given everything she has, her talent, her time, her energy, her sleep, her relationships, and says the problem is her output, not the structure above her head. So let me replace the metaphor today. The ceiling was never glass, it is concrete, which is thick, reinforced, deliberately constructed, and painted to look transparent. It has architects, it has maintenance crews, it has been carefully preserved across generation because it served a purpose, which is keeping power in a narrow set of hands. And concrete does not shatter when you push against it, right? We have concrete walls. It requires the right tools, it requires the right team. So I'm going to talk in my next slide, which is this, the weights on the ankles, what women are really carrying. And these are the real weights which does not show up in job descriptions. It does not show up in our resumes or performance reviews, but it shapes our outcomes every single day. So we'll start off with the confidence weight. Studies show that women consistently underestimate their abilities and men consistently overestimate theirs. I'm not blaming the men here, it's just the statistics. And both groups are rewarded accordingly. A woman who says, well, I think I can do this, is rated less capable than a man who says, come on, I've got this, about the same task, same competence, different packaging, different outcome. And this is not a confidence problem, this is a perception problem built into the system. In my own journey, I have had so many moments where I wondered if I was ready for the next role or responsibility. And what I realized over time is that leadership is often learned inside the role, not before it. So, one of the biggest shifts that we can make is this: raise your hand, girls, raise your hand before you feel ready. It's very important. The double bind. This is another invisible pressure that many women experience in the professional environment. If you're assertive, you risk being seen as aggressive. If you are confident, you are called arrogant. And if you collaborate, many people question your authority. So women are constantly walking a tightrope, strong, but not too strong, confident, but not intimidating while they are talking, ambitious, but still likable, but not much. Ambitious women are not appreciated. This balancing act requires a lot of emotional energy, and these are rarely recognized, right? And we all go through it. Next one is the home weight. Even in dual income homes, which is quite common these days, research consistently shows that women carry the majority of domestic and childcare responsibilities, which means that a woman's workday does not end when she leaves the office. She arrives home to a second shift and she shows up the next morning having done both, asking for neither credit nor accommodation. But today, I want to share something many working women will recognize, and even working men for that matter. There are days when leadership decisions, business strategies, deadlines, and meetings feel intense. We all go through that, right? But there are also mornings that start very differently. They start with school lunches, or making sure the homework is done, or reminding your child 10th time where her shoes are. And then suddenly you transition from being a mom to being a professional in the space of 30 minutes. And sometimes people talk about this as work life balance. But if I'm honest, many days it feels less like a balance, but more like an integration, balancing act, right? It's moving between two worlds, and both of these worlds are deeply important. But being a mom has actually taught me things that leadership books or my IIM degree has never taught. It taught me patience, it taught me emotional awareness, it taught me resilience and different perspectives. Because when you tuck your child into bed at night, you realize something very important. Success is not just about titles or achievements, it is also about the kind of world we are helping build for the next generation. And we should be proud of it. The invisible work weight. Um, when I was researching about what I'm going to talk during for the Women's Day to the wonderful ladies and the men, this particular thing kept coming, and as I moved into leadership roles, I started noticing something very interesting, which I really wanted to put it in here. In every team, there are people doing work that holds everything together, right? But nobody talks about it. The person who's mentoring junior colleagues, a person who is a peacemaker, he or she sort of calms everyone during conflicts, the person who quietly helps others succeed. These kind of work are done quietly, but they rarely appear in performance reviews. But it is the glue that holds teams together. And that realization changed how I try to lead. I started paying attention to things that are often invisible because recognition matters. People feel seen, and when they feel seen, they don't just work together, they bring their best selves to the organization. And that is the kind of culture we all benefit from. Last but not the least, the likability penalty. Wait. So here is one of the most maddening findings in gender research. Statistically, when a woman succeeds, people tend to like her less. But when a man succeeds, people tend to like him more. Success and likability move in the same direction for men, but opposite direction for women. This means that every step a woman takes towards achievement is a step that costs her something socially. And in workplaces and societies built on relationship, this cost is real. In my next slide, I want to talk about some inspirations, and I'm sure we all know about. We have a lot of inspiring women that we come across, and I just wanted to put four of these wonderful women who are capable. So, they are capable human beings and they refuse to let the weight define them that we just discussed. Wilma Rudolph. She was born prematurely and she was the 20th of 22 children living in a rural place in US called Tennessee. She had polio as a child and she would never walk normally. At 18, she won 3 gold medals at the Rome Olympics and she became the fastest woman in the world. The weight was enormous. She ran anyway. Her story reminds us that your starting point does not determine your final destination. Malala, I'm sure everybody knows her, a Nobel Peace Prize winner. She was shot in the head by the Taliban for going to school. She survived. She went back to school. She won the Nobel Peace Prize at 17. They tried to silence her with a bullet. She responded with a book and a foundation and a voice that has reached every corner of the earth. And her story reminds us that education and courage are extremely powerful forces for change. Sudha Murthy, I think she's one of India's most beloved figures. She applied a job at Tata Engineering in 1974 and she found a notice saying that the company did not hire women. What she did, she wrote a postcard to J.R.D. Tata himself, calling it the most anti feminist thing she had ever seen. She was called for an interview. She got the job. She was the only woman among all the men. She was uncomfortable, I'm sure, but she was determined. She went on to become one of India's most celebrated philanthropists and chairperson of Infosys Foundation. She did not adjust to the notice. She challenged the person who posted it, and her story reminds us sometimes systems change because one person refused to accept them. Last but not the least, Serena Williams, the greatest tennis player of a generation by almost any measure, has spoken about having to work twice as hard for the recognition as compared to her male counterparts, about being drug tested, um, more than any other player, about being penalized by showing emotion that male players very freely show. She won 23 Grand Slam, carrying all the weights most people cannot imagine. She did it while being unapologetically, magnificently herself. And these are not superhuman stories, these are deeply human stories. Stories of people who looked at a concrete ceiling and said, I see you, I know what you are, and I'm not stopping. I know it's Women's Day, but I want to stop here and speak directly to the men in this room as well. Because here is something the conversation about gender equality often gets wrong. It frames this as a women's issue, something that women need to fix, women need to fight, and women need to champion. And I want to say that clearly that framing is wrong, completely wrong, and I am completely against it. And it is also unfair for the men. Absolutely. So, we were talking about the ceiling, right? The same system that put a concrete ceiling above women has put a concrete box around men. The box that says you cannot cry, that vulnerability is weakness, that asking for help is failure, that your worth is your productivity and your salary and your stoicism. Men. That being present, emotionally available father is somehow, it does not matter. It is very less important than being a financially successful one. Not sure why. That mental health is something other people deal with. Men don't need it, right? And that box has killed men, literally. Men die by suicide at nearly 4 times the rate of women globally. Men are less likely to seek medical help. They are less likely to seek mental health support. They are less likely to admit that they need help, that they are struggling. Because the box says struggling is not allowed. I'm sorry, you cannot struggle. The ceiling and the box were built by the same architecture, the same rigid, binary, limiting idea of what men and women are supposed to be, and the penalties waiting for anyone who steps outside those lines. So, when we talk about dismantling this structure, we are not asking men to give something up. Definitely not. We are inviting men to put something down, put down the performance of invulnerability, put down the idea that your value is your output, put down the assumption that domestic help is beneath you or outside your domain, put down the discomfort you feel when a woman in the room is smarter, louder, more prepared than you, more confident than you, and replace it with curiosity and respect. Because a world without a ceiling is also a world without a box. And men, you deserve that world as much as anyone. What nobody tells you, the real truth. You will push against the ceiling, you will push against this box, and it will not move immediately. You will do everything right and still be passed over. You will be more qualified and you will still be overlooked. You will speak up and still be talked over. You will negotiate, you will give it your best and still be offered less. And on those days, and there will definitely be those days multiple times, the most important thing you can do is do not internalize that structure as a personal verdict. That ceiling or that box is not a comment on your worth. The weight on your ankles is not a evidence of your weakness. That resistance that you face is not proof that you don't belong. It is a proof that you're pushing against something real, right? And that real thing can be changed. Here is what I know about concrete, and I'm sure many of us here know about it. It is permanent, right? It is rigid, it is robust, it is permanent. It feels immovable. But concrete has a weakness. It cannot handle sustained, coordinated, collective pressure from multiple dimensions or multiple directions simultaneously. So, one person pushing alone will exhaust themselves, but a team pushing together from different angles with the right tool, with the understanding of what they are actually dealing with, that team can bring down any structure ever built. So, always remember that you're not alone in this. You were never meant to be. Find your people, that tribe, find your tribe, build your team, push together. And when you make a crack in the ceiling, and of course you will, together, right? Hold it open for the person behind you. That is how concrete comes down. Not in a single dramatic moment, but in the accumulated pressure of people who refuse to stop. Um, I have two more slides to go. And I just wanted to, I'm giving a lot of talks about ceiling and the box, and I just thought it is important to also do something about it, right? So maybe this week, women, stop waiting to feel ready. There is probably a role, a project, or an opportunity you have been hesitating about. Raise your hand. You might surprise yourself. Men, Notice what is happening in the room. Notice who is talking, who should get the credit, who does that invisible work, and then actively support that fairness. And everyone, tell someone in your life, your daughter, a colleague, a friend, a brother, a sister, a mom, what you see in them. Not in a general way, right? Specifically, like, I see how hard you work and I think you are amazing, you're extraordinary. Or I think you should go for that role. And here is why, and give the reasons. Or you go, I have your back, you have mine. I'm in your corner. These sentences, they might be very normal for the person who says it, but extremely powerful for the other person. These words can change someone's confidence more than you realize. I want to leave you with a vision, not a fantasy, a vision, something real, something achievable, something worth working towards. Imagine a world where the girl grows up and the only ceiling above her is the sky, where her ambition is celebrated rather than managed, where her success makes people like her more, not less, where she does not calculate the safety of her route home or shrink her voice in a meeting room or wait to be called on when she already has the answer. Imagine a world where a boy grows up and knows that his worth is not his productivity, where he can ask for help without shame, where he can be present in his family's life without an apology, where strength includes vulnerability and leadership includes listening. Imagine workplace where the best idea wins regardless of whose mouth it comes from, where the promotion goes to the most capable person regardless of the gender, where policies reflect the reality of human lives rather than the convenience of an outdated system. And that world is not a utopia. It is an engineering problem, a structural problem, and we have everything we need to solve it. The ceiling was built, the box was built, which means it can be demolished. And the people who will demolish it, the people with the tool and the teams and the refusal to stop, they are us, all of us, with the same mindset. Let's go build something better. The world is waiting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abipsa, for that powerful and very real conversation. I'm sure many of us have seen parts of this in our own journey. Moving on to the next segment, which is the Q&A segment, Abipsa. So we have received some thoughtful questions from our Innover employees through a pre-event form. So I'll start with one of the questions that came in earlier.
Mhm.
We would love to hear your thoughts on this. So the first question is, many of us encounter invisible barriers at work. In your view, what is the best way to recognize and address these subtle forms of bias or limitations?
Thank you for the question, Rupashri. Um, in my view, the best way to address, first recognize, and then address these subtle forms of biasness or limitations. I believe the first step is learning to distinguish between a personal setback and a pattern. A single day, a single bad day is a noise, right? But when you notice that your ideas consistently land differently depending on who repeats them, or the high visibility projects always seem to go to a certain type of person, or like you are sometimes called, she's too emotional or too sensitive, while a colleague showing the same intensity is called passionate. So that's a pattern. So I think being aware and trying to distinguish between a personal setback and a pattern is very important. And awareness, as I said, um, as leaders, we need to also, consciously observe these patterns. Um, I remember noticing very early in my leadership journey that sometimes excellent ideas shared by quieter voice in meetings didn't get the attention they deserved. And that was a learning moment for me, Rupashri, and yeah, everyone. Since then, I have tried to be consciously intentional about creating space for those voices. Sometimes we're pausing and asking, we haven't heard from everyone yet. What are your thoughts? Sort of like, sometimes coaxing, or by acknowledging when someone's idea deserves further attention. So these small actions can gradually change the dynamic of a room. So my advice is building your network before you need it, because these invisible barriers are most dangerous when you face them alone. And I completely advocate to that. When you have allies in the room, people who see you, people who credit you, people who advocate for you, when you have that network, that barrier, it loses much of its power.
Thank you, Abipsa. That was very insightful. Moving on to the next question. As a leader, how do you support and empower other women in your teams to grow in confidence and take on bigger roles?
Um, So in my I always say to everyone, like, whenever I go for to give these motivational talks, or when I go to college campuses, I always and I'm very grateful about it. I have been very fortunate to have wonderful mentors and leaders in my professional journey who have helped me a lot. And I think one of them, one of the professors from IIM, who I'm really close to. So she always said, you know, the most important thing a leader can do is sponsor, not just mentor. And that's something that stuck to me. And so there's a very crucial difference between um, a, a leader being a sponsor and a mentor, right? A mentor talks to you, a mentor guides you, but a sponsor talks about you, when you're not there in the room. Like mentoring is giving advice, and sponsorship means giving opportunity. And as a leader, I try to ask myself these questions very regularly. Whose name am I saying out loud in rooms that they're not in? Because I want to be a sponsor, not just a mentor. But one thing I've learned over time is that confidence often grows because someone believes in you before you completely or fully believe in yourself. So, as a leader, I focus on just few things I want to talk about. One is try to identify the potential in a person quite early and offer them stretched opportunities, because it is sometimes important to be in out of your comfort zone. And the other thing is giving feedback, because sometimes it is very important to give direct, specific, growth oriented feedback that would help a person grow. And lastly, I always believe visibility matters. So I make a conscious effort to ensure the contribution of my team members are recognized, especially in large forums or leadership discussions. And I've seen firsthand how powerful that can be. I've had team members who initially, hesitate to present or lead initiatives. But after a little bit of coaxing or a bit of encouragement and support throughout the process, the confidence grows dramatically. And that's one of the most rewarding aspects of leadership, as per me, watching people discover their own capabilities. So, yeah.
Thank you, Abipsa. It also highlights, someone, a leader has to be really empathetic and caring about their teams like you do to give the team an opportunity, right? So, thank you for highlighting that. And moving on to the third question. Looking back on your journey, what advice would you give your younger self who's just starting out in the corporate world?
Um, this is a question that keeps coming to me quite often. And I often think about this question through a slightly different lens, Rupashri. So I have a 9-year-old daughter, Anahi, and I've got a 4-year-old niece, Akira. And many times I find myself wondering, when they eventually step into the professional world, what advice would I give them? And interestingly, it's the same advice I believe I would be giving my own younger self. Um, and something which I have discussed previously as well, which I completely believe is, don't wait until you feel completely ready. Many of us, and I definitely, yes, have spent so much of time preparing before stepping forward. But growth often happens when we take that opportunity and stretch beyond our comfort zone, right? And some of my biggest leaps in my career came at a moment when I wasn't completely ready for it. But somebody believed in me, and that's how it helped me grow. Second, and very important, is building financial awareness quite early. We talk about financial independence, and I believe right now everybody is cognizant of the fact that how important financial independence is, both for men as well as for women. But how many of us are financially aware, understand the money? When I talk to a lot of women and youth, or students from the placement, I talk to a lot of them. And one thing a very common thing is, women, they say, I don't understand money at all. My dad takes care of it, or my husband takes care of it, or my friend. Or sometimes the money is there, you're getting your salary, but you do not know, what to do with it, except for spending, or keeping it in an FD. So for me, I just believe that it is very important to be financially aware early on. Like saving, investing, planning, it gives you independence and confidence. And financial awareness allows you to make career decisions from a place of strength rather than fear. The third thing is, and that's something I advocate to all the women, just not to my younger self, or that's something that I'm definitely going to tell the girls as well, that taking care of your own well-being is extremely important. Ambition and hard work are important, but sustainability matters just as much. Taking care of your mental and emotional well being allows you to perform consistently. If you are not in a good state of mind, you would not be able to give your 100%. So it is very important to take care of your well being. And finally, most importantly, remember that success is never an individual journey. When I reflect on my own path, I realize how much the support of my family has mattered. My husband, my brother in law, quite classic examples of incredible support, not just emotionally, but in a very practical way. And I'm just giving this example because I just believe that that support system, it makes a huge difference. It creates a space for you to pursue your goal with confidence. So if I have to summarize my advice to my younger self and to the next generation, it would be brave, be brave enough to take responsibilities and opportunities, wise enough to build financial independence, kind enough to take care of yourself, extremely important, and humble enough to accept support from people who believe in you.
Thank you, Abipsa. I think especially with being financially being able to make our own decisions is something that we women really need to work on, because we would have worked for like more than a decade and still we don't know what to do with our money.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
thank you for bringing that to the forefront. Moving on to the next question. What is what's one mindset or habit that has made the biggest difference in your personal and professional growth?
Hmm. Um, if I had to choose one mindset that has shaped my journey, I think it would be continuous learning and curiosity. Um, the world we work in today is constantly evolving, right? Technologies change, industries shift, and leadership expectations grow. So, the ability to stay curious and keep learning helps us remain adaptable and open to new perspectives. Um, this is something that my dad um, always used to say when I was growing up, when I was a kid. And I think that's something that has stuck to me. Um, he would always say that whenever you go, always go with a blank slate, that you do not know anything. When you go with that attitude that I do not know anything, that's when your mind will be able to absorb so many things. And that is something that has always triggered me from quite a young age. So today also when I go for any meetings or conferences or any meeting that I go to, I always go with an attitude that I do not know anything. I'm here to listen and I'm here to learn. Even though I definitely know that at least 2 or 3% of the things I might not know, and I'm here to learn. So yeah, I think that has been a mindset that has helped me always be a student at heart.
Makes sense, Abipsa. Thank you. Yes, so I guess learning never stops. So moving on to the next question, to the final question, right? What message would you like to leave our Innova audience with on this International Women's Day?
Yeah. Um, I did speak a lot about the ceiling and the box and how important it is to have, a cohesive team support that's needed. So, if there's one message I would like to leave today, it's that, success and progress, they're rarely individual stories, they go together. And when I reflect on my own journey, I realize how many people have contributed to it, right? That's what it's a journey, and you always bring people along, your mentors, your colleagues, your friends, and very importantly, your family. And the encouragement and support from my family has played a significant role in enabling me to pursue my professional goals while managing my personal things and studies. I am currently doing another master's, and of course, travel and everything. So I know I had told it in the previous. One of the previous questions I did mention about family, but I really want to reiterate it again, um, the men in the family, like, my husband or my brother-in-law, my father, like, my father-in-law, have always had a very progressive mindset about partnership and shared relationships. For them, supporting the ambition of women in the family is not something extraordinary. It's simply um, the natural way a family should function. Like, they step in for shared responsibilities, genuinely believe that professional aspirations should be supported equally. And, these everyday actions, they make a huge difference. So the reason why I'm saying is that, that experience has reinforced something very important for me, that progress is rarely achieved in isolation. It is built on an ecosystem of support, of encouragement, and belief. So, this Women's Day, my message would be this, that let's continue to support and lift each other up at work, at home, and in our communities. Because when one person grows, the ripple effect benefits everyone around them.
Thank you, Abipsa. Thank you for taking all these questions up so promptly. Now, giving this back to Deepu. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ipsa and Rupashri. It was great to have two strong women leading such an engaging conversation, trust me. And people, as we wrap, I just want to leave you all with three simple thoughts from today's session. First, invisible barriers are for reals, but so is our ability to name them and challenge them. So please, keep doing that. And second is something which is like about resilience, right? So resilience is not about toughing it out all alone. It is about seeking support, as Ipsa mentioned, setting boundaries and asking for, what you deserve. So continue doing that. And third, each one of us, regardless of our role, gender, or level, can choose to be an ally who opens doors, amplifies voices, and questions unfair patterns. Okay, so please support each other. So Ipsa, on behalf of the entire Innova team, a big thank you to you for sharing your journey and insights with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Rupashri, for co-hosting with me, and thank you each one of you for being part of this event. We hope you continue, these discussions with your teams, with your managers, with your families, and your circle beyond this frame. I wish you all a meaningful Women's Day. Have a great evening ahead, and goodbye.